welcome to all who are tuning in this evening. My name is Kristen Fund. I'm with Gen Art Silicon Valley. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And on behalf of Gen Art Silicon Valley Pride and San Jose Museum of Art, as well as Create TV, we appreciate you being a part of tonight's discussion, as we have some important topics to explore, including equity, representation, and empowerment. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge the land that we, as Silicon Valley, sits on. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded, occupied territory of the Ohlone and other indigenous peoples, whose ancestral homelands and traditional territories extend throughout the current day Bay Area. We recognize that the lands and lifeways of the Ohlone have been gravely altered by processes of colonialization that continue to this day. Initiated in the 1700s by Spanish missionaries, perpetuated during Mexican rule in the 1800s, and further expanded by sanctioned genocide during the gold rush and early California statehood. Colonialism has affected the life, land, and culture of the Ohlone and have shaped what we know as California today. We commit ourselves and encourage all who are a part of this event to continue learning about the true history of our county and look for ways to donate time and/or resources to Indigenous organizations and support Indigenous-led grassroots change movements. The Ohlone remain active members of our community today, and we recognize the historic and ongoing contribution of the Ohlone people to this region. For those of you who do not know Gen Arts, we are a program of Silicon Valley Creates. Our program focuses on advocacy and career development with a twist of fun, creative networking events, when we can meet, of course, for artists and arts admins. If you consider yourself in an emerging creative field, we would love to connect with you. Please drop us a message in our Instagram or Facebook page, and we'll be in touch with more info shortly. Now, I'd like to hand over the mic to Sera Fernando, Chief Diversity Officer of Silicon Valley Pride. Sera, we appreciate you being here and for moderating this discussion tonight.
Thank you. I am elated to be here. So thank you so much for the warm intro and happy Pride, everybody. It's August. I know for a lot of people, August is not necessarily Pride season. It's more so June. But guess what? Here in the South Bay, we celebrate Silicon Valley Pride. That's happening next weekend. So from me to you, Kristen especially, happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
All right, folks. So intersectional creators advocating for LGBTQI plus arts professionals in Silicon Valley. This is what we're going to be speaking about tonight. My name is Sera Fernando. I go by she, her, and sia pronouns. I am a proud queer transgender woman, and I'm so delighted to be here this evening because a lot of these artists that we're presenting to you today, I actually follow. I have them in events. I see them in the community. So I don't think I've ever had an opportunity to actually have an in-depth discussion with them. So without further ado, let's bring up some of these artists. So first up, let's bring up Areli Cardenas.
Hi everyone, Areli Cardenas, nice to see everybody. I'm a visual artist and very excited to be here and speak with y'all today.
Thank you, Areli. Up next, let's bring up ASHA.
Peace, everyone. I'm ASHA, she, her, fam. I'm an artist, educator, and revolutionary, public teacher of the last 10 years. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Asha. Next to the stage, let's bring up Armando Ortiz. Oh, Armando, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Delighted to be here. My name is Armando, coordinator at Viva Mi Tierra in San Jose, Grupo Folclórico. I am a dancer.
Awesome. Thank you, Armando. And we might have an echo. And next up, we have the one and only Tyler Holmes. Welcome to the stage, Tyler.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. Hi, everybody, I'm Tyler Holmes. I'm a musician, performance artist, diet curator, and I live in Oakland. I use they, them pronouns.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. So let's get this conversation started. Again, we're going to be talking about activism. We're going to be talking about intersectionality. And let's get right to the chase because we don't have that much time and I want to get as much rich information from you as possible. And to each and everyone, before I forget, happy Pride.
Woo! Happy Pride.
All right.
Happy
So,
Pride.
intersectionality was coined by the Mr. Kimberly to describe how race, class, gender, and other individual characteristics intersect with one another as they overlap. So what I want to know from you folks is, what does intersectionality mean to you, and how has it shaped your experience in Silicon Valley?
I can go. So
All right.
I feel like, being a young Latina woman of immigrant parents, a lot of my identifiers, I think from an early age, were kind of placed on me. And it wasn't until, in my experience, I decided to kind of branch out and dive into my individuality and exploring who I was. And so, again, coming from a traditional Latino family, things were assigned to me. I was told kind of who to be, what to do, where to go, and it wasn't so much, I don't see it as like rebelling, but it was more coming into my own. And being part of Silicon Valley, I feel very privileged being from the Bay Area, where we still got a way to go, but we are a little more diverse than the rest of the nation. So I feel very privileged to be able to be here from San Jose and be able to express myself freely. Very grateful for that.
Awesome. Anybody else have thoughts on about intersectionality?
ASHA, it's a little hard to hear you. I think the rest of us mute ourselves and then we'll let you talk. I think that'll work.
Yeah, I think if Armando is muted, it'll be all right. So, sorry, just to recap real quick, and thank you, Arely, I appreciate it. I think just speaking towards the second half of the question, where what has that exposed or kind of shown within being in Silicon Valley, and I think the power and privilege on the vast discrepancy between who is able to have access and who is not able to have access. While San Jose can sometimes be considered like a sleepy town and it's kind of slept on a little bit, the disparities of the intersections of those most vulnerable and those most marginalized are extremely exposed here. And it's just very concerning, to be honest.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that as we are here in today's socio-political climate, specifically with a lot of stuff that's going on with, and I see Arely, your flag back there with Black Lives Matter, seeing these protests, and not only seeing that, but making sure that intersectional voices are represented within the spaces that we have. Armando or Tyler, do you folks have any? Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, so we actually, hi again, my name is Armando. I'm representing Grupo Folclórico Viva Mi Tierra in San Jose, and we actually came up as a group with a definition of what it meant to each and every one of us, because there's everybody in the group is different. You know, we come from immigrant families, we are LGBT, and then we have, you know, trans people that are very, very, very hard touching. So for us, it meant to be accepted within for our own race, in our community, our gender identity, and Silicon Valley has really opened their arms to us, and through the art of dancing. So that for us is really, really, really welcoming, and we are very grateful to be intersectionally accepted.
Hi. Hi again. I'm Tyler Holmes. One more time. Intersectionality is really, It's always been a big part of my life. I'm a Black person with a white Jewish mom. I'm a non-binary person, and before I ever had any of those words, I was a very femme, very gay child, and had a lot of those. Like one of the other speakers was saying, I had a lot of those titles put on me, and a lot of those names and ideas put on me before I ever came up with them myself. I was just more existing. So being intersectional is always, I'm always straddling some line or some classification. So it's always really just at the root of anything that I'm doing is being intersectional. I always try to see that because I feel like it's integral to my work and to sharing like the message that I'm trying to get across. And my experience with Silicon Valley has been interesting and mixed and kind of small. I don't live in Silicon Valley. I live in Oakland. I've worked in San Francisco for maybe 7 years now at this point. And working in San Francisco and with other artists that lived in Oakland and San Francisco, we've had a lot of experiences with gentrification and interactions with like an influx of a techie population. So what we know of intersectionality and how it overlaps with Silicon Valley hasn't always been pleasant. But I think that's always something that we've been trying to navigate and trying to like open that conversation and have it be clear. So that's my...
Yeah, and I like how you put that, how intersectionality plays a role, and even seeing some of the crowds, and let's face it, queer people. And I love this panel because we have intersecting backgrounds, and like I just love the fact, and I just love seeing like intersectional queer people, to be quite honest. And there's like a lot of spaces I occupy personally where I don't see that kind of demographic. So y'all are artists. And I am not an artist. I'm an artist in the sense that I like talking. But how do you folks advocate for others within the work that you do in the community or within the artistry that you create? How does that show up in the work that you folks and the art that you folks do?
I could go ahead and talk a little bit more deep about another side of me, which is my background in social work. I've been doing nonprofit work for the last 10 years, and I predominantly worked with youth and young adults, Black and Latino. And through my experience of interacting with others, I'm all about empowering. Particularly as a woman, I'm all about bringing the forefront the women that I encounter. And as I say, I'm a visual artist. I really love painting women. Women are beautiful. I love them so much. And I really want to kind of put forward vulnerability. Typically, any type of vulnerability or any type of nudity that I paint, I'm just all about putting everything in the forefront, knowing that women are like hypersexualized, and knowing that even if I can't understand, even if I can't relate, I just want to empower those to come forward and demand respect and stand in their power and be okay to be vulnerable and unlearn a lot of the things that have been projected on us. So I'm all about advocating for those that may not be able to articulate themselves as well, or those that may not be willing to listen, but maybe I can captivate their attention with my like visual drawings or paintings and such, mural work. So I'm all about giving voice to those that maybe need someone to step and stand beside them and lead alongside them and kind of just, pave the path of confidence and pride in our community. Most definitely, yeah.
Most definitely. That's awesome. Go ahead, Tyler.
I just wanted to piggyback off of that because I also work with youth. For most of since I was really 15, I've been working with youth, and now for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been working at an elementary school, and we work with a pretty broad spectrum of population, but we also have a lot of gay and trans kids, a lot of gay and trans families who are also brown and Black and a lot of different backgrounds. So I think that intersectionality has really is a big part of my non-artistic work, and working with youth and families like that. Youth are amazing because if you explain to them, like, my pronouns are they, at first they might not get it, but in a week it's completely normal for them, and it's like in their psyche. Adults are a lot harder to move and for them to learn, really. So working with youth, it's really easy. And then in my art practice, I definitely always have been on the side of being more poetic. So I have always said that visibility, or just me sharing my experience, is a part of sharing that intersectionality and promoting and sort of aiding our message. But then more recently, in the past year, I did a performance series called Fem TV Unplugged that was at 2727 California Street Gallery in Berkeley. And that was a space for trans, queer, mostly femme, and Black and brown performers to showcase new unplugged or acoustic versions of the music that they normally present. So I'm trying to, aside from my own experience, help other people, not necessarily help, but make a space for other people to have a voice or to share an experience that is amazing and not always at the forefront.
That's beautiful. Go ahead, Asha.
With the youth, talking about youth thing, working with youth thing, I'm happy to jump on board with these folks. Being a public school teacher for the last 10 years has been more really a gift to me, I think, than my students, because it has given me validation in seeing that if you can create a space where students are able to explore the narratives of their own stories and their own stories of their ancestors, and have the validation of that taking place within the classroom, having assignments where they get to kind of explore who they are. There's just such honesty in that discovery, and the fact that it's within a school system, I think, gives them a legitimacy to their story. And then to just, push it a little bit further, I always kept my eye out for those queer babies that I just wanted to help guide and help facilitate their journey through, public schooling and life, really. And that's been a joy of mine, and something that I've really embraced, in being able to support students in their journey, and, just really letting them know that their story deserves to have and hold space in legitimate academic institutions, really has shown them that they don't have to hide. And I think the intersection of where my art comes into place is that I'm primarily, although I do a bunch of other things, a spoken word poet. And so in addition to standing on desks and spitting poems about my own identity and my own diaspora story in the classroom, I've been able and fortunate enough to bring in not only my friends' works and publications, but I got to use the KQED documentary made about me and my diaspora story, and how I choose to use art to help me understand and process the generational trauma, as well as bring in my own TED Talk into the classroom, and show students that they can use art to help dissect the onion of themselves. And so, yeah, just went up to working with youth and keeping me young.
Yeah, I love how you bring up storytelling, because for me personally, like, storytelling for trans visibility is paramount. It's key. And getting kids to tell their stories, giving them that confidence, and seeing, like, I think it goes both ways when you see queer people in the community doing their thing and rocking out and being visible. That inspires so many people. I know Armando, you had your hand up. Did you have something else to add?
No, I actually wanted to go, but I agree. I mean, everything she said is just, that's how our group is too. And, it's, you can just give so much to people out there, and in the process, you can teach, you can learn, you can, open people's minds and hearts, and it's a great.
Thanks. So I love how everyone here is aligned with working with youth. And moving to our next topic, Black Lives Matter, very, very much a youth movement. And in terms of artistic activism, the work I see in each of your work, and I've seen all of your work, right? Um, Artistic activism, for folks that know, it's a dynamic practice combining the creative power of the arts to move us emotionally with the strategic planning of activism necessary to bring about social change. Is art an effective tool for activism? Can artistic activism bridge the divide between communities? I say yes, but I want to hear it from you folks. Go ahead, Armando.
Yeah, if I may, just tell you a little bit about our mission as a group. So our mission is to create inclusive spaces while celebrating diversity. We have just so many dancers from different backgrounds. Each of them has their own story to tell and, life experiences. And then we also celebrate cultural pride all together, like getting to know them and a little bit more about their backgrounds. And then we do this by creating and performing the Mexican folklore dance. I think that, being Latino and folklore is very flirty, and it's always about a man and a woman. And, we are an LGBTQ plus group. We've been through to so many communities, and we've been received with arms wide open. And also, like, Latinos also are surprised to see a guy and a guy dance. And it's just we open their minds, and that's how you connect with one another. And that to us is a definition of, like, building bridges to to be more successful, and to just empower every single person, and empower every single dancer that we have, and other people out there who are having a hard time identifying who they are. Or we serve sometimes to for other people to have that little spark about wanting to explore more about what it means to be part of the LGBTQ plus, and if that's who they really are. I think that's great.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I definitely agree. Like, I know with San Jose, we have a very large Latinx population. And to see the work that you folks do at Viva Mi Tierra, it's such a beautiful, poetic way. And this is why we just love it when you folks partner with Silicon Valley Pride. Uh, we- uh, I one of your dancers, I forgot their name, but she speaks to my heart every time I see her perform. So I love the work that you folks do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to say the Folklorico group is literally like one of the most beautiful things I have ever witnessed. I just to echo everything that you said, watching just how it bridges across generations and how it bridges across these intersections that we're talking about. It like simultaneously brings joy and then also like challenges just like patriarchy is I just want to say is like the most beautiful thing, truly. And then just to speak a little bit about the idea of art, yes, art can be powerful. Art can be something that is movement building and galvanizing, and something that carries the weight of that which cannot really be expressed through words, right? But I want to like I want to critique like a little bit of the idea of art being this like constant movement for change, in the sense of art has to be substantive if we're actually asking for it to create some kind of a change. And so what does that mean in today's world? Well, I've scrolled through enough like graphic artists, different colored fists, what is that art doing to like recreate something new, to push the idea, to challenge the paradigm? I question the validity of art being a source of change when it's simply being reproduced on mass scale, and doesn't challenge us to think more or do more. And so I love art. My art is performative. I'm a spoken word poet, but there's a reason why I haven't written another police brutality poem. I'm spitting the same police brutality poem all of these years because a new poem about police brutality is not going to do anything to change police brutality. I know my poem is good. I still like to spit it, and I enjoy the weight that it does carry. But what I'm saying is I'm not choosing to invest my energy in my art to create something that's not going to do anything for the community and for the people. How many cities have painted Black Lives Matter on the street, and how many cities have ended qualified immunity? Sit with that.
Beautifully said. Go ahead, Tyler.
I'm really glad you said all of that, Asha. I couldn't agree with that more. I think it's something that I've gone back and forth with a lot over the years. Like, should art be political? Is art political? Does political art do really anything at all? And I think it's really good in this in climate to allow Black and brown people and queer and trans people and all of us to have a space to make art that doesn't have to be changing the world or ending a regime or changing laws. I think art is very cathartic and really important for the soul, and I think it's really now is the time more than ever to like lift up Black art and allow Black artists to be weird, allow brown artists to be sad, allow all of these intersectional artists to be weird and to just have a space for their imagination. And then also, I think it's really important to reflect on what you're saying. Whereas if you are an artist and you're talking about social change and activism and justice, that you do something a little bit more than just create art, or do something a little bit more than just create art that is, especially in this world, it's really easy to like hear a song, okay, that was cute, or like see a painting, oh, that's really great, we should change that. But it doesn't, people are being killed. Real serious shit is happening. So I think that there comes a point where even I as an artist have been like, oh yeah, I'm doing something really good by saying this. And it's like, a lot of the times with art, you're preaching to the choir, and it's like when I'm playing a show from my community, these people mostly know these things, so I'm not necessarily trying to like change a bunch of minds. If I was going to do that, I would go sing at a Trump rally, which I don't want to get killed, so I'm not going to do that. So I think as artists in this climate, it's really important. And that's, I think, a big part of being intersectional is allowing ourselves space to create art and be artists as a career, and to, always have our voice and our full selves be present and visible, but then also to like enact real social change. And like, I'm seeing that a lot on this panel. Like, we all work with youth and with the community. So I'm seeing all of us, like, we have our art practice, and then we're like, okay, how can we actually like help and, change this shit around a little bit? I think it's really great to see what all of you are doing. So thank you.
Check.
Yeah,
I wanna jump in there a little bit. Visual artist, and I want to say my immigrant family, my family that, sometimes through like visual, whether it's photography, whether it's painting, I can get a message across, especially when there's like language barriers. So when I think of my community, we wear many hats, and sometimes in order to have a moment of connection, I don't have to speak, but kind of just show images, paint images, and then have that creative expression. And I think if I could speak for myself, when I paint, it's exactly, what we were talking about right now, like with Tyler, is we're doing it for ourselves. And then from there, if people relate to it or feel like they can connect with us, it's that same thing, right? Like, we're more likely to connect with others that are just like us and relate or agree with what we're saying. And so with that said, also agreeing with ASHA, like, and once we get there, how are we creating change? And I think it's just that. I feel like when we are banding together and we're moving towards change, typically we are banding with those that are like-minded. And we can't really sit here and drop knowledge or encourage those to band with us if they aren't ready to be educated. You can't educate someone that isn't ready to learn anything. So I do want to say that on one end, for my side, you know, for my immigrant side of my family, for those that aren't even English speaking, I can't really have these in-depth conversations to help them understand. And sometimes when it comes to me painting a painting or sharing photography, that's where I allow them the space for them to try to express themselves and try to explain to me. And then the other side where Asha's saying is like, all right, now we put ourselves out there, we put our art out there, and like, what are we going to do about it? How are we creating change? You know, so like I said, check.
Yeah, and I like how you brought that up. And I want to bring up, and go ahead, Armando, before I move on, but Armando, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I just wanted to add, I totally agree with them. And I feel like sometimes you don't need to use your voice to, you know, like urge people to change right away. I mean, change takes time. You can't just, you know, expect change from one day to another, you know. Sometimes, like, even through art, you can deliver a message that, or for the need to change or to help others, or sometimes even makes you think about your own wrongdoing. And I think that, you know, that activism really does help when it's not just when it's through art. Like, for example, as we dance in the LGBTQ plus group, so that for us just opens the idea of even touching the subject of being LGBTQ. So yeah, it's great. Just wanted to add.
And I like that idea of no words, actions only. And this is where I'm speaking specifically to you, Arlie, because looking during Black Lives Matter, in the thick of it, stores started boarding up their windows to protect their businesses. And I know you had this piece called No Words, Actions Only that is like right over here, right there. I'll bring it closer. But in terms of like creating art that speaks to people, bridging these connections, right? Does Silicon Valley provide an ideal environment for folks like yourselves to do your work? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes. If I could speak a little bit, I mean, that in particular, I remember when I got presented with the opportunity, stuff was heavy in San Jose. You know, some people weren't acting right in the streets, and it wasn't the people protesting. It was like that moment where I needed to pay respect to what was happening, and also acknowledging, you know, really sitting there and thinking about, you know, growing up in San Jose, I didn't really see any inclusive murals of the community. And I'm like, man, we're about to be bold. We're about to do something and really bring forward Black Lives Matter, you know? And we're on the topic of intersectionality, like that painting speaks to that. And exactly what I titled it, you know, kind of covering her mouth with the drip bandana. It was like, we could sit here and talk about all the change we want to do, but when it comes down to it, we can't just talk about it. We need to be about it. And that's why I titled it No Words, Action Only. And if it was up to me, I would have blasted and brought 10 of my homies and like, let's go paint and put this all over San Jose and really just put it out there to kind of put it in people's faces, you know? Some people took to it very, like, loved it. Other people came up and gave me a piece of their mind. But at the end of the day, I just know whatever I put forth, it isn't just for me at that moment. For me, it's like for my community. Like, let me speak up and be bold, and I'll take the hits for those that want to be standing with me. And so I want to thank you, sir, for bringing that up, because that was honestly a piece that I thought over and over, and I just wanted to really do it justice and give respect to the movement and, more importantly, my community.
Yeah, for me, it just, and if you folks want to see how the piece looks like, I don't know if you can see the glare, but that is the piece. And I made sure to leave this little note that you left here. Um, this piece right there, here, just looking at art and just seeing the rainbow bandana, for me, just resonated really well. And without me getting too emotional, just seeing this as a piece in my city just spoke volumes. And again, like, congratulations on that piece. And I know that the folks could follow you, and we'll share those socials later. But I know I love the fact that you have it in sticker format, so you can just pop it anywhere. So it's like, yeah, let's go.
I might be slapping in places, but I'm not saying where.
Oh, hey. How about you other folks? For the work that you do in the South Bay, is San Jose or Silicon Valley an ideal environment to do the work that you do? For me, for example, I feel that San Jose is home for my work in trans activism, because I just don't feel that there's no one doing that much here in terms of just being that really outspoken and loud voice. And that's not to say that we don't have translators, don't get me wrong, but just for me, just doing my part in the community, I just feel that amplifying Black trans lives matter, and all the things that this war, this anti-trans war that's going on, it just needs to be abolished to its core. So this is where I feel that I could do this in Silicon Valley, and it just breaks my heart to know that my work here is still not done. I appreciate it, but the work is not done when it comes to uplifting and amplifying Black trans lives. So that's just my little piece. I'm not an artist.
Sarah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So does Silicon Valley provide an ideal environment to do the work that you do? Or if not, Tyler, I know that you live in Oakland. Do you find Oakland a little bit more inspirational than Silicon Valley when you're creating the art that you do?
So yeah, I've done more work in Oakland and San Francisco than I have in Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, a long time ago, I recorded an album because they had some good studios out there. But Oakland is definitely like a catalyst for change. It's definitely it's very Black. It's a very and as a Black queer non-binary person living in Oakland, it is like very prescient, very now, very important. It's at the forefront. It's what's happening right this second. So I feel like it's the right space for me to be doing what I'm doing, and it also is not, because it's not safe for trans women or trans people. It's not as a city, it's not it isn't built that way. I definitely feel a little safer in Oakland than I do in San Francisco. And for me, because like we're talking about intersectionality, everything's intersectional. I have never been a wealthy person, so in San Francisco, I definitely feel a little more slighted, and like it's harder to do the things that I'm trying to do. And I've been given more opportunities and received much better in Oakland. And that being said, in Silicon Valley, I haven't had too many. This is one of the few opportunities that I've had to be involved directly with Silicon Valley. As a couple years ago, as a group with an old band of my daddy's Plastic and with Persia, we had a song, Google apps, that was like about Silicon Valley and about our interaction with the new tech wave. But that's been a conversation that we've been having, sort of, and we were having back then with the media, and working there in real life hasn't happened that much for me. So I have a little outsider perspective.
I see. Thanks for sharing.
I think it's really interesting, right? Because we are artists that are finding ways to be resilient, and there are a lot of artists that look like us or might sound like us or adjacent to us that are also finding ways to be resilient. But I question the way in which we define how easy or not easy it is for us to do this work, because we shouldn't have to be resilient. I know that there's a lot of really talented folks that are struggling for housing here. I know that the environment, while inundated with organizations, community organizations, and groups that are down to support the arts, down to pay artists, and recognize them for the time and capacity that they put into things. But no, artists are struggling. Artists are forcing themselves to survive, to be resilient. Resiliency is not something we want to be doing. And I'm fortunate enough to be a teacher and adjunct professor, and so I can make do. But there's a lot of folks that are really struggling here, specifically. I think in the South Bay, East Bay, I think is seeing a lot of ripples of the same effects. And so ironically, while some of these big companies are coming in and potentially paying or footing bills for events, the community itself here is struggling. The artist councils are doing great jobs to find access to funding, but who has time to apply for these grants that are, having exponential amount of applicants coming in because we are desperate. And so, I don't know if it's easy for me to do my art out here, but I know that there's a strong community of people who want to see me win and that I want to see win. But I think it's important that we challenge the fact that the environment itself that we're living in is not suitable, is not sustainable for our art.
Very nicely said. Thank you, Asha. Now, moving on, I want to move to another topic of identity politics. Now, within the past few years, the term identity politics has risen in prominence in the national conversation, most notably within conservative circles, in response to police shootings of unarmed Black men and women, rights of trans people, discussions around rape culture, and recent BLM protests. What can intersectional creators do or say to create meaningful dialogue with people and institutions across the social and political spectrum? And how can we ensure that this type of dialogue actually leads to real change? It's a loaded question, huh?
Fire all the racists. I'm just kidding. But really.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, I got a lot of this issue, but it's not. It doesn't have a positive outcome. The reality is this: is sitting down at a table together and breaking bread ain't doing it. Folks have been trying to do that for generations. That's respectability politics. I question the concept of this kumbaya, let's sit together idea. It's not working. It hasn't been working. And folks are continuing to die. And I personally, and I know that a lot of folks, will waver on these ideas. And this does stand outside of my family because I do feel that there's a certain privilege that I hold to have conversations. But in a general scope of things, I refuse to debate somebody on an issue where people are dying. That's not a debate. It's dehumanizing, it's inhumane, and it steals away every ounce of humanity that we might potentially hold for one another. These debates on policy issues are lives being lost daily. And so I just refuse. I don't have those conversations. You can check the videos. I get bullhorns and I write poems and I scream them out, and it kind of is what it is. I'm an agitator. I will continue to agitate in spaces where I feel as though it is safe for me to do so. But more and more, it is concerning that especially folks that are non-binary and trans are having to hold the weight of having these conversations when it is unsafe to do so. It is violent to ask certain people of certain intersections to try to have a discussion over what we call identity politics. So yeah, I'm just not having it. Fire them, kick them out, dox them, do whatever we got to do. It's a wrap. I'm good off having that conversation.
I feel you. Go ahead, Tyler.
I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. I think that's one thing that's definitely, I think, more present in Oakland is that, or that I've seen a lot more in Oakland is like radical politics is more fashion than it is in other places where, discussing your right to exist isn't a thing. You can't, I'm already here. I already do exist. It's one thing that's bothered me my whole life when people say like, oh, I don't believe in that. I'm like, you cannot believe in the tooth fairy because you don't see her, but I'm trans, I'm black, I'm right here. You have to believe in me. I'm real, and yeah, I think that lately I've seen some things that I really like, which is like show your board. I've seen on Instagram where it's like, show us the people that are on your board or that are behind the scenes at your organization. Like, let's see a picture of everybody that works for you. If it's 17 old white people, something's got to burn. And I think movements like that are very much about clarity and that are very explicit. Like in Oakland, I saw the Newer Collective did this thing where they were responding to the MoMA and they were like, we want to see like, you support Black people for a year, only show Black curators for a year. And they had this debate that was going back and forth with the head. And I think they eventually stepped down from being the head. But that person, is making six figures at an organization that showcases a lot of brown art and a lot of Black and brown suffering through the years and pays only white artists and, has an antique white staff. And that just isn't the thing. And I think, these like conversations are cute, but it's like, it's one thing that I always struggle to do when I'm talking to my mother, my uncle, or my relatives, because they are of course for change and they're, on the blue side or whatever. But I'm like, I want blood. None of this is enough for me. Like, our community is being killed or being like treated as second-class citizens. And it's like thousands of years too late. I'm not interested in discussing it. And what I call like limestone politics, where we get like, an inch every year, like, okay, now you can maybe vote. Now you can maybe have a little more oxygen. It's like, bitch, what? We need like to be treated equally or nothing else. So I think that is important for us to just be explicit from like, it's 2020 and we're having like, the George Floyd protests, when all of that started kicking off. As a Black person, it was really scary to me because it's like, I felt like, I need to be in the streets, we need to burn shit down. But it's also like, I'm a direct target being a Black person who has like some semi-male presentation. For me, it's life-threatening. So I think it brings all of these new components to the conversation that are really important, whereas like white allies, it's like, use your body. You are a shield. You are a lotus flower. You're like a stepping stone for the conversation to happen. I think all of that kind of ideology is what really needs to be pushed right now, because like going to take it like very direct, like when we're going to like talking about like Biden and Kamala, and I hear people like, oh, tell everybody to go vote. Biden, Kamala. I'm like, two evil, basically Republicans who are for destroying sex workers, not for the rights of Black people, not for the rights of houseless people. Accepting the lesser of two evils all the time is getting us nowhere. It's gotten us nowhere for hundreds of years. That's why what I said about blood, it's like, we need something different. Sorry.
All good. And I think Asha and Tyler, what you're saying resonates with me really well, because like my action right now, I've always been, and maybe I know some folks that are behind the scenes seen me talk at a lot of allyship events. I talk a lot about allyship. I am so effing over allyship. I want change agents. I want accomplices. And let's go straight up with what Adeli said, action only. I want action, because allyship is not going to do it. And seeing the escalation, and excuse me while I get emotional, but seeing the trend of Black trans lives lost accelerating during shelter in place, in comparison to 2019, where we're gonna beat those numbers of the amount of trans folks lost. It just breaks my heart. So I'm all about action only, and I don't need allies anymore. This is not a time for allies. This is all about accomplices and change agents, and that's it. Go ahead, Arely. Sorry, I just needed to.
No, you're okay. Just this kind of brings up of like, what can I do? Like I said, working with young people, a lot of my young people feel a responsibility, because we've been seeing, a lot of the protests. We're seeing teenagers, like the kids out there, trying to, make moves. But something I tell my young people, unfortunately, man, I had one of the former young people that I used to work with was shot by a police officer during the protest. I had another one that, a few that were attacked, and calling me and telling me what can I do, and I need to, and I had to kind of ground my young people and tell them, you don't need to anything. Like, just because we understand, we know, and we can explain, we are not responsible to educate anyone else. You are not responsible to make anybody understand or try to convince them to empathize with you. It is everyone else's responsibility to go out there and educate themselves. And I think that's where, like, I want to stand with, like, everything that was said around this dialogue, that it is okay to walk away from conversations, and it's not my job to make you care. It's not my job to educate you. Meanwhile, I've been putting myself out there. Some days I don't want to be resilient. We're out here surviving, right? And so I understand how the dialogue is important, but it's not my responsibility to create change. Now, if what I do, what I say, what I create, and like start something or spark something in someone else, dope. But I want that individual, that person in leadership, to want to do that. And that's why I jokingly said, like, fire them all. But I really do believe we have some leaders and a lot of different platforms that just need to be out, and so my hope is that for those that are in any type of leadership, they educate themselves, because it's not our responsibility to bring that to their feet.
Go ahead, Armando.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. We need someone at a higher level to represent us. We need our own chair but with someone who knows what pain we've been through, what experiences we've been through, what we see on the other side of what other people are not wanting to touch or deal with or even recognize. Like, that would make a big change in every single thing that is going on in today's days. Like, I mean, just having someone who really knows what it is to be us would really, really mean a lot to many, many people, I feel.
Absolutely agree. And I just love the fact that everyone's very future thinking about how are we going to change the youth, and working with you in particular, the future of intersectional creators in Silicon Valley. Let's talk about it. What can we do to advocate for the next generation of intersectional creators, other than you folks being visible and creating the work that y'all do? How could we be advocates?
I mean, I would just tell the youth, continue to fight for a social place, and be accepted, and not have to worry about being free of being who you are and what you want to do and who you want to be. Like, you don't have to go through that. Raise your voice, make your concerns be heard, and urge those in power to make a change. Because if change doesn't happen, people are not ever going to move forward, and it's always going to be the same thing. And you don't want to be stuck in a generation where there's so much bad things that, it's horrible. You have to be free. You're a human being. You have the same rights as a human being, not just because you're poor or rich or anything. That doesn't make you any different than someone else. Fight. Continue to fight.
Nicely said. I do have, okay, go ahead, Tyler.
just briefly, I feel like I will admit that I'm a little scared because I think the youth are it. Like Generation Z and the kids like that are actually young now. I'm old. The kids that are actually young, they know what's up. They are already over it because they've been lent a planet that's on fire where they have no rights, and they've seen everybody that they love and appreciate be abused for hundreds of years. And while our generation was still taught lies, I feel like the new generation has seen enough of the truth early on to be like, oh, hell no, we're not doing this. So I noticed like a lot of the queer and trans youth, they're coming out earlier. They're pushing politics. Like we said, like a lot of the BLM activists are like on the front lines. They're like 15, 16. They're young. They're over it. So I think the kids are all right. They really have the message. I think the part that scares me is that like as an older person, what I need to do is like I need to give my body to the cause. I need to listen. That's what I can mostly offer to the youth, is to listen to them and let them tell me what I need to do and like how I can be helpful and useful to what really is their revolution. Our time is passing that torch right now.
Beautifully said. So we're almost at time, but we do have some time for Q&A. When I mean we have time, I mean we have time for one Q&A. And this is going to be like a lightning round. So if thoughts come up, just go off mute and ask. But it's a long question, so I hope you folks are ready. What are your thoughts as artists who are also activists on how the queer community and the artist community in the South Bay is leveraged as a tool for displacement and gentrification? For example, movements to activate spaces deemed underutilized or unsafe gentrifiers, co-opting activist language and politics, public arts opportunities being primarily funded by developers, etc. What are your thoughts on the responsibility artists hold?
That's a very thorough question.
Yes.
Whoever wrote that, thanks for that very thorough question. I think pretty much everybody spoke to this earlier, that artists have a responsibility to make art, because it's like an internal personal responsibility. So our responsibility to make sure that these institutional and very like corporate versions of supportive art for us to make sure that they are in line. I don't think that's our responsibility. That's their responsibility. Our responsibility is to our community and to ourselves. And I guess this question is really good because this is what we can do as a community and as artists, is call out those things and be like, that's using the language of the community. That is like, what Asha was saying earlier, like that's a reproduction of a FIS. Like you're just mass producing a concept that says BLM and you're not actually supporting Black trans people. So I think for us to just call out those things when we see them is really all we can do. I mean, I know I'm not rich. I'm not like funding those things, but I think, that's what I can see that we can do.
Tyler, you got it. I think it's all about the idea that, listen, if they're offering me a check and I have the art that I can go in there and disrupt that space and make hella folks uncomfortable, I'm gonna go ahead and agitate that space. And at the same time, when they're posting a Black tile on Instagram, I'm gonna call for that exposure of the board. I'm gonna call for that acknowledgement of co-opting Black culture or utilizing Black culture to capitalize and profit off of. And that's what we can do. We got our platform and we got our art and we got to survive. So,
and I have one more Q&A question. We're going to squeeze it in here. How do you feel about being asked to assimilate explicitly or implicitly? You got it right there, folks. There's no words, actions only, right?
Nope. Assimilate to what? Like what would we even assimilate to? Like this notion that America is supposed to be cis and white? Never.
Yes. Let's go. Well, folks that are listening over give a big virtual round of applause for our guest today. And thank you, folks, for creating such rich and amazing dialogue. Before we go, I want each and every one of you to tell us about your where to follow you. So, Aurelie, where could we find you at?
I'm super active on Instagram at Ellie Paint This. And then I have a website as well at ellicardenas.com. So you could chat with me or pick up some artwork, stickers, whatever you like.
Awesome. What about you, Asha? Where can we follow you at?
Yeah, you can also hit me on Instagram at ASHA_poet. And then you can also check out my website, www.ashapoet.com.
Awesome. Armando, where can we follow you?
Hi, you can follow us on Instagram, Viva Mi Tierra, and also on Facebook as Grupo Folclórico Viva Mi Tierra. You'll find the contact information there as well as our new website.
Thank you. And last but not least, Tyler, where can we follow you?
Tyler, really quick, the Tyler Holmes on Instagram, just Tyler Holmes, but the before it, like the Tyler Holmes. I always say the, but it doesn't have two E's, the Tyler Holmes. My music is on Bandcamp. It's on Spotify. It's on all the streaming platforms. You can hear my music. And I'm releasing a new music video tomorrow, so check it out.
Yes. Congratulations on that. So thank you, folks, for being able to be with us today. If you want to follow me, I'm Peace Love Sera, Sera with the E on social. And of course, Silicon Valley Pride's happening next weekend. Tomorrow, we're actually doing drops across the entire Silicon Valley with cool little gift bags. So if you're into those drops, there's one's happening at Billy DeFrank Center. But if you want to get some cool swag, definitely check us out at svpride.com. And I will pass it off back to Amanda and our host at Gen Arts. Thank you so much, folks.
Thanks, Sarah.
Wow, you guys were amazing. That was an incredible conversation. We are so lucky to be able to have you join us for this month's program. My name is Amanda Rawson. I am the chair of Gen Arts Silicon Valley. You know, Kristen spoke about us briefly at the very beginning. For those of you who joined late, we are a program of SV Creates, and we provide professional development opportunities, networking, and advocacy efforts. So this was our networking effort this month. It's virtual, and I hope all of you enjoyed it. A big thank you to Sera, to Armando, to Asha, to Tyler, to Aurelie, all of you who I've actually knew of before this, or I've met, and I've been following you on your social media. You all are amazing people, artists, advocates. We really appreciate you. Thank you, Saldy, for taking care of all the tech on the back end. We appreciate you working with Frederick and Kristen and myself and our Gen Arts team. And then a big thank you to our partners, San Jose Museum of Art and SV Pride. We're so excited to work with you guys. And also, last but not least, to our broadcasting partner for tonight's conversation, Create TV. Thanks, you guys, for bringing us live tonight. And I just want to say thank you. Good night. We appreciate you and your time, and we hope all of you stay safe during this crazy, uncertain time. And that's it. Go ahead. Have a good night.